Let's go live to Greg Sheridan, foreign editor at The Australian. Greg, this situation in Lebanon on the border with Israel, it continues to escalate. It's the deadliest day in that conflict since 2006, Greg.
Yeah, that's right, Kieran. Now, Israel has decided to escalate at this moment, but we ought to bear in mind the context. Since October 7, there have been something like 9,000 rockets fired by Hezbollah into Israeli territory. Now, the vast majority of these have been intercepted by Iron Dome, but that is a clear act of war by Hezbollah against Israel. Not only that, Hezbollah is occupying southern Lebanon in violation of previous international agreements. Now, I think Israel believes a couple of things. First, that it's got to secure its northern towns so that the 60 to 80,000 people who are displaced from its northern communities can move back there. Those communities can cope with some rocket fire. They can't cope with the threat of October 7 attacks. So I think Israel is trying to do a couple of things. It's trying to degrade Hezbollah. It's trying to convince other Lebanese to put pressure on Hezbollah to stand down. And it's trying to get Hezbollah to at least come to back to the de facto truce that often leads to years of relative stability on the Israel-Lebanon border.
I was interested to read in your piece today as well, and totally agreed with this point you made about many in Lebanon really have been frustrated, disagree with, in simple terms, can't stand the approach of Hezbollah and haven't done for decades, Greg.
That's right. There have been times when Lebanon and Israel have been good friends and indeed close allies. They're both, I've got 1 million Lebanese Australian friends. We've benefited from Lebanese immigration to Australia so much. Both Lebanon and Israel are cradles of civilization, really. There is no quarrel between Lebanon and Israel. Hezbollah is a fundamentalist, extremist, fanatical Shiite terrorist group prescribed under Australian law as an outlawed terrorist organisation. Its core ideology involves a hatred of the West, a hatred of Jews, a hatred of Israel, a determination to wipe Israel off the map. It's funded and controlled by Iran. So its actions have nothing to do with Lebanese welfare whatsoever. Now, all of those peaceful Lebanese, Muslim, Christians, Druze, who used to have a wonderful, wonderful country in Lebanon. Beirut was the Paris of the East. Intelligent, vibrant, fabulous place. They don't want to be in a war with Israel caused by fundamentalist extremist militia loyal to Iran. But Hezbollah gets so much money from Iran and is so ruthless, it's become the dominant force in Lebanese politics.
And so much now depends on what Iran decides, because it is a proxy. And I wonder, do they make the judgment? I mean, it's hard to put your head in the minds of the regime in Tehran, but do they want to lose the buffer that they've got there on the border with Israel?
Well, that's right, Kieran. That's the $64 million question. In my piece today, I outlined that Benjamin Netanyahu had a different vision for Palestinian peace. He wanted to make peace with his neighbours first, create a period of normalisation, and then after a period of normalisation, he'd be happy to hand over control and even sovereignty of a Palestinian state to Palestinian leadership. Now, Iran desperately wanted to disturb that initiative, and that was going great guns under the Abraham Accords. Israel had made peace with a whole lot of neighbours and was about to secure the big prize of peace treaty with Saudi Arabia. The October 7 attacks were Iran's way of stopping that from happening. But Iran has a lot of reasons not to want a full-scale war with Israel at the moment. For a start, there's a huge slab of the American Navy in the Mediterranean at the moment and in the areas around the Middle East, and they would support Israel. There wouldn't be American boots on the ground, but there would, I believe, be American fire. So Iran would be savagely outgunned, and Israel would certainly take the opportunity to bomb the blazes out of Iran's nuclear program. So if Iran spends Hezbollah on a whole war, and Hezbollah is, destroyed for at least temporarily as a military force. It doesn't any longer have that buffer. But secondly, it also risks losing its nuclear program. And also the Iranian people are very unhappy with their government because it delivers such a miserable quality of life, such terrible economic outcomes. But having said all that, wars are often irrational. You cannot predict what's going to happen. The next couple of weeks, I think, are critical.
So true. And just finally, the Prime Minister's back from Delaware. The valedictory has well and truly got underway for Joe Biden. Here's a little of an exchange. In fact, I just got back as well with covering that Quad, and I threw a question into Joe Biden. Have a look.
Mr. President, will the Quad survive beyond the election in November? The Quad, will it survive regardless of the outcome?
It'll survive way beyond November, says the outgoing president. The question, of course, Greg, in the context of the former president, Donald Trump, not being a fan of alliances, at one point threatening to pull out of NATO, Greg.
Yeah, I think the Quad will be okay. The Quad was doing fine under Trump. Biden has allowed the American system to operate, and it's continued on autopilot in favour of alliances. And Biden is an old-style Democrat who believes in alliances. That's been good. On the other hand, Biden is a ditherer, and he has allowed the American military budget to be ineffectively spent and to run down a bit. Nothing like Albanese, of course. I mean, the Americans are 1,000,000 times more on the ball than our sleepy government in Canberra. But I don't worry that Trump is going to destroy the Quad or anything. I am worried that the Quad is losing energy. So around the region, Australia never argues for the Quad to be more active militarily. It just says sort of dopey things like we should ask ASEAN what it wants the Quad to do. And then Biden is at the moment caught up in what he thinks is productive personal diplomacy with China's President Xi Jinping. Now, the Chinese normally play the Americans off a break in this kind of thing. They hold out the hope of a diplomatic breakthrough and get the Americans, therefore, to quieten down and slow down on their sort of constraining actions, and they achieve nothing out of it. But all four of those leaders are very weakened. Two of them, at least, are going to be replaced very shortly. But I think the Quad serves everyone's interest and is likely to continue on.
Greg, great to chat as always. We'll see you next week. Thanks.